Looking Glass Chess, the Blunders and the Blunderers. First, a little background. Lewis Carroll published Through the Looking Glass in 1871. It was illustrated by John Tenniel. He gives us the starting position of the players at the beginning of the book, and he gives us this schema of how the players will move throughout the book. Alice plays this pawn here, and she will move up the chessboard to become a queen near the end of the story. She crosses over brooks as she goes, and the files are separated by hedges of this chessboard. Now, Carroll doesn't have this side all white moves and this side red moves. Actually, white will make several moves in a row. Some of the moves aren't even moves at all. I'm going to take these 11 and these 10, and I'm just going to make them 21 for ease of discussion. So the Blunders and the Blunderers. Let's begin with the Red Queen's blunder. Well, this is the position at the start of the book when Alice meets the Red Queen, actually a non-move. Well, the Red Queen suddenly disappears. Alice isn't aware. She actually went here, Carroll tells us. This is a mate in 3, so not a very good move for Red, who's already in this losing position. Let's bring her back. So the question is, what should she do? You can pause the video if you want to try to figure it out. And there's a hint. Well, she should go here. This is what chess computers tell us. This would produce a mate in 24 or about, maybe a little less. Maybe long enough to run out White's clock. Now let's go to the end of the book, near the end, when we have this position. The Red Queen comes to the examination. We have all 3 kings in a row, 3 queens in a row, rather. This check is actually ignored in the book. Alice could easily grab that queen and even call check at no material loss, so it seems to be a bonehead of a move. Well, what should she do? By the way, that's check. That's checkmate, I mean. This is checkmate, and this is checkmate for White. So she has to guard against those 3 possibilities. So the usual way to do that when you're in a losing position is to call check on the king as well as you can. And you can do that here and here. But that would produce mate in 2 and a mate in 3 for White. She could also go here. That would make a mate in 2 for White. All other moves produce mate in 1 for White. What about this move, however? What does that do? Let's peek under. It's actually mate in 3. We already have a mate in 3. So it's one of 2 best moves for Red. It's not a blunder at all. Let's move on to the White Queen's blunders. Well, we start here at the beginning of the game. Red did take off here. Then Alice hops over the brook, gets on the train, and lands here. Well, the question is, if it's White's move, what should White do, right? Well, White has mate in 3. And actually, there's 2 different ways to begin this mate in 3. We can pause the video if you want to try to figure them out. I'm just going to go on. The first way is White can go here, move the queen, call check. Now, Red could come and block, but that would be mate in 2. So let's say Red moves here instead. White moves here, calls check. Now the king can move here, or the king can move here. Either way, the White Queen moves here for checkmate. So all the White Queen did was go around Alice. Remember, Alice is this pawn. Let's bring it back. The second way begins with the knight moving here. I won't go through it. That is the first move. The rest is for you to figure out. So let's go back to here. Alice jumps over the brook, gets on the train, and lands there. The White Queen, now the shawl gets away from the White Queen. She moves up here beside Alice. Well, let's bring that back. What should the White Queen do? Well, she actually has mate in 1, doesn't she? There's 3 different ways to do it. Let me show you. This one, or that one. All mate in 1. But she doesn't do that, of course. She runs after her shawl. And she's beside Alice. Now she moves here. Well, let's pull that back. What should she have done? Well, of course, she has mate in 1. It's the same move as we saw before, really. It's this square. Let's bring her back. She doesn't do that, of course. She goes up here, and she becomes a sheep as Alice moves here. And now the White Queen has become this sheep. It's looking glass chest, don't ask. And Alice buys an egg, and the sheep doesn't like to put things in customers' hands, so she goes to put it on a shelf in her shop. Here. Well, let's bring that back. Where should she put that egg in her shop? She has mate in 1. And again, she has it in 2 spots, there. So that's the White Queen. Let's move on to the Red Knight's blunder. Well, here, near the end of the book, the Red Knight comes and says, "Ahoy, check." And Alice thinks that the Red Knight is talking to her. And he does have a check. And he also has a fork on the Queen. Well, of course, it's just a bonehead move because the White Knight comes and takes him at no material loss to White. Well, that move that Red did, it produces a mate in 8 for White. So what should it do? We're looking for a mate in 9, a mate in 10. We're looking for a number higher than 8 that Red should do. Well, let's start with the Red Queen, and let's start with the obvious bad moves. This way, all lower numbers than 8. This way, all lower numbers than 8. Red moves here, mate in 5. So this mate in 8 is, of course, better for Red. Here, in this direction, not so good. This is probably the best direction, but 7 and 7 and 4. Well, we can go this direction, even capture the White Knight, but not any better. Well, the Red King could move. He can move here, and he can move here, but no good. Well, the Red Knight himself has other squares he can go into. These 2 here, they produce mate in 5. None of those numbers are bigger than 8. What's Red's best move? It's the blunder. Well, it's not a blunder, is it? We owe the Red Knight an apology. I think one chess computer even said the next move for White is here, not even taking the Red Knight. So it's the White Queen that makes so many blunders. She misses 4 mates, 3 times mate in 1 on 6 different squares. Suspicious. Well, if Tweedledum and Tweedledee came to this chess game as 2 rooks, as Carroll tells us, and if the Walrus came to this chess game as a bishop, as Carroll tells us, what did the White Queen come as? She came as the betrayer. Thus, the oddities of looking-glass chess explained.